They may be the best defensive team I've ever seen.
Let's start out with some numbers. There's been over 125,000 ball screens this season that have directly led to a shot or turnover. In 46% of those, the ball handler himself has called his own number and taken the shot. 19% of the time, the ball has ended up in the roller's hands, and the other 35%, the ball has been passed to one of the other 3 players not immediately involved in the screen. Now stay with me. On plays where the roller receives the pass, his team scores an average of 1.04 points per play. When one of the 3 not involved in the screen receives a pass, the NCAA average is 0.88 points per play. And when the ball handler calls his own number, the average decreases to just 0.79. You are now looking at the mathematical reason for why drop coverage has become so popular at the college level. In drop, the idea is to keep the big man that's guarding the screener sagged back towards the paint, basically daring the ball handler to shoot a jumper or a floater. In other words, baiting the offense into taking that .79 shot. Teams like Creighton and Purdue have built strong defenses by playing their 7-foot centers in drop. The math just kind of makes sense, right? Well, before you answer that, let me introduce you to the Houston Cougars. Currently, Houston has one of the most efficient defenses of any team this century, and they're doing it with basically the opposite of everything I just told you. Not only does Houston not use drop coverage, they aggressively attack ball handlers, forcing it out of their hands. In fact, remember how I said that 46% of all shots come via the ball handler? Against Houston's defense, that number is just 29%, which is the lowest of any high major team. In other words, the Cougars actively prevent teams from taking those inefficient shots. Yet despite that, they lead the entire country in defensive efficiency. What's going on here? Well, let's go to the film and find out for ourselves. The first thing we should do is come up with a name for Houston's ball screen coverage. It's not quite what I would call a hedge. Virginia is a team known for hedging, and notice how the defender is sideways with his chest parallel to the sideline. That's different than the technique Houston uses. They have the defender square up the ball handler, with his chest facing the opponent's chest. Most announcers on TV call this a trap. I mean, that does seem like a pretty accurate way to describe what's happening here. But head coach Kelvin Sampson is adamant that a trap is not the correct term either. In an article written by The Athletic's CJ Moore last year, Sampson was quoted as saying, "We never trap, ever. We just stick to the line of scrimmage." That line of scrimmage is created by the offensive player who is setting the screen. An imaginary line gets drawn based on where the screener's top foot is located. Here you can see the line of scrimmage is created right behind the 3-point line. So that means Javier Francis's job is to get out to the line, get his chest in front of the basketball, and stop the ball. However, the Houston Bigs do regularly go beyond the line of scrimmage to provide extra pressure on ball handlers. And to be honest, I think Kelvin Sampson and I may have different definitions of the term trap, because some of these sure seem like traps to me. But to avoid confusion, I'm going to use the terminology blitz throughout the video. We'll say that Houston blitzes the ball screen. Now you might be thinking, how do the Cougars get away with committing 2 players to the ball without giving up rolls to the basket or 3-pointers? If you freeze frame their possessions while a ball screen is occurring, the roller often does look pretty open.
On film, we as coaches, we can pause the film and say, well, this pass is going to be open, but in real life, there's no pausing out there.
The first key for Houston is their ability to push the handler out towards half court. Here you see they're in the blitz. A Towson player is open on the baseline, but look at how far out the ball handler is. The pass has to travel about 45 feet to get to the open man, leaving plenty of time for Houston to recover. Here's another example later in that same game. The Towson player is open underneath the hoop, but the ball pressure is too overwhelming. I like to look at where the offense sets the screen, like here on the right wing for Iowa State, and then compare that to where the ball handler actually ends up after the blitz. And it's also hard for opponents to even think about making the skip pass to the corner for a 3. Again, it's just too long of a pass to make with any consistency. When facing the blitz, a lot of guards don't really have the ability to scan and dissect the defense. They're basically just trying to survive. This is a sight you'll often see against Houston. The ball handler with their back turned away from the blitz, just trying not to turn the ball over. It's hard to make a play when you're facing away from all the action in front of you. When Houston gets extra aggressive, they won't even wait for the ball screen. Watch here how JoJo Tugler leaves his man and just attacks the handler. The line of scrimmage hasn't technically been established, but the Cougars pressure the ball first and worry about the rest later. The bigs are also very good at recovering back at the right angle. When Iowa State passes to the screener here, it might look like there's a driving lane, but Juwan Roberts recovers in time to chest the drive and alter the shot. As you can see, the 5-man has a lot of responsibility within Kelvin Sampson's defense. On this play, just watch Francis. He blitzes the ball screen, immediately double teams the post when the ball goes into the roller. Then as the play continues to unfold, he's right in position to block the shot at the rim after the backdoor cut. Now, of course, the guard defending the ball also has responsibilities. One thing I've noticed the Houston guards are extremely good at while the big is blitzing is jumping in the air and getting deflections. Watch how Emmanuel Sharp has 2 hands up in the air, almost like he's blocking a volleyball spike. The ability to jump in the air and deflect passes makes it even harder for opposing guards to throw passes over the top to the roller or spot up shooters. I especially like this example here because again you can see Sharp jumping as high as he can, but you can also see a coach on the bench with his hands up, clearly demonstrating that this is a technique Houston teaches with a purpose. So now we can start to put everything together. You see here how Roberts is blitzing and LJ Cryer has his hands up hunting a deflection. Guarding a ball screen isn't a 2-man task, it's a 5-man task. The whole team must work in unison. On this play, Damian Dunn is the tagger. He's tagging the screener in order to give time for Roberts to recover back to his man. While that's happening, Sharp is in charge of zoning up and guarding 2 on the weak side, but we've already established how difficult it is for offensive players to make the skip pass to the opposite corner. As the play unfolds, Montana again gets into another ball screen, and Dunn again becomes the tagger. This time Francis is guarding 2, and even though Montana makes a pretty nice pass, Francis has plenty of time to recover and contest. Notice here how Dunn anticipates his tag. He sees the ball screen is coming, so he attacks the roller, meeting him at the 3-point line. His man is pretty wide open, but this is one of those situations where the ball handler is just trying to survive. He turns his back on the play and just makes a desperate pass out of the situation altogether. On this play, it's pretty much the same spacing with Cryer in charge of the tag. Utah sees the floor better this time and jumps to pass over the top of the defense, but Cryer still has plenty of time to recover back to his man because the pass is off target. Make a mental note of that pass because we're going to talk about it again in a little bit. There can also be an early tag and a late tag on the same play. Here Jamal Shead is the early tag, but as the roller enters the paint, Ramon Walker takes over that responsibility because he's the low man. When the offense is able to pass the ball to the big man out of the pick and roll, that big man better be able to process the defense and make a play quickly. Watch here how Texas A&M gets into the middle of the paint, but the passer is unable to locate the open man when Cryer sinks down to help. And on this play, I want you to watch number 13, Nick Spinoso on Penn. When he catches the ball, he has a potential cutter open, but Sharp quickly takes away that pass. Then after he gets the ball back, watch how he struggles to locate the open man again. It's just a tough task for big men who aren't elite passers to process the game quickly enough to beat Houston's rotations. There have been many times this season where the opponent hits the roll man only for Houston to then steal the next pass or at the very least generate a deflection. The pick and pop is something that should theoretically give Houston's blitz coverage some issues. Here the corner is completely empty, so Penn is able to pop for a 3. But believe it or not, Houston opponents have only made 4 pick and pop 3s the entire season according to Synergy Sports data. There just aren't as many college centers that can consistently make you pay from deep as you'd think. In general, the Cougars defense does give up a lot of 3-point attempts. 43% of opponent shot attempts have been from behind the arc this season, which ranks them 328th in the NCAA. But for the 6th season in a row, Houston is currently holding teams to under 30% shooting on those 3-point attempts. Kelvin Sampson has developed the secret formula for making opponents miss their jump shots. One key for their 3-point defense is the flyby. Houston doesn't close out on shooters with the traditional choppy feet technique. They fly at the shooter by jumping in the air. You can see examples of those flybys here. Another thing that I believe is key to their 3-point defense is their ability to force off-target passes. I already showed you this pass earlier in the video. Houston makes it so hard for you to pass over them that when a pass does manage to get through, it's often not on time or on target, making it harder for the shooter to get a clean look. See how the shooter catches the ball below the shooting pocket here? I suspect that has an influence on the expected shooting percentage of the shot. So how do you score against the blitz? One idea would be just to not set ball screens at all. You can't get blitzed if there's no screen in the first place. The problem with that is the alternative is likely going to lead you to either one-on-one isolations or post-ups. The Houston guards are great at guarding one-on-one on the perimeter, and if you throw the ball in the post, they're probably going to blitz you anyways. Kelvin Sampson refers to that as their monster defense. TCU had the most success of any opponent against the blitz in the second half against Houston. They hit the roller for an easy layup, and then after that made some really nice skip passes for open 3-pointers that most teams often aren't able to make. One thing you'll see a lot of from opponents against the Cougs is big men slipping the screen to try and quickly beat the blitz before it can get fully set up. That might steal you an easy basket or two, but I should note that Houston will also make adjustments to their scheme if you do something that's hurting them. Check out this example from the UCF game. UCF was running what's called a veer screen. They had their big man run out like he was going to set a ball screen, only to veer off to the corner to set a pin down instead. Notice how Francis doesn't fall for the fake ball screen by getting in his blitz coverage. Instead, he's pointing to the corner, knowing that the play is really designed for that pin down. Against BYU, Houston decided to go away from the blitz altogether. BYU takes the most threes of any high major team in the country, and all that shooting was giving the blitz some trouble. So Sampson decided to switch ball screens instead, which he talked about after the game.
We were willing to give away some twos on switches versus those guys nailing those threes.
As great as the blitz is for Houston, their ability to change the coverage based on the opponent is a very useful tool to have. To wrap up this video, I want to highlight 2 players on Houston that especially stood out to me when watching film. The first guy is only a freshman, JoJo Tugler. Tugler comes off the bench, but he has a 7'6" wingspan and is putting up historic steal and block numbers for a freshman. He's blocked almost 11% of opponent shots and gotten steals on about 4% of possessions. That puts him in rare territory with other freshmen like Anthony Davis and Joel Embiid. On this play, look at how mobile he is, blitzing all the way out to the sideline and then recovering back to his man to stop the drive. Here, he's literally in the paint as his man catches the ball and still blocks the three-point attempt. On this blitz, Tugler loses his balance and goes stumbling backwards, yet gets right back in the play, cuts off the drive, and then blocks the shot in help defense. Here he initially makes a mistake by letting the ball handler get ahead of him. He's not chest to chest like he should be, and yet he has the speed to keep up with quick guards, which is impressive for someone his size. And finally, this is my favorite play of his. Instead of blitzing the screen, he senses that a slip is coming and uses that long wingspan to create the steal and save the ball from going out of bounds. The last player I want to talk about is Houston's leader, Jamal Shead. He won Conference Defensive Player of the Year last season and has only gotten better as a senior. The 6'1" point guard is a phenomenal on-ball defender with great anticipation and instincts when guarding off the ball. There's really only one Jamal Shead play that needs to be shown that perfectly captures not only his defense, but Houston as a whole. The play starts with Shead on offense in the restricted area. When Dayton breaks out in transition, Shead sprints from behind to back tap the ball, then saves it from going out of bounds. The ball winds up back in Dayton's hands, only for Shead to steal it once again. It's a play that just totally encapsulates Houston, and that's why their defense is ranked #1 in the country.